All right, last lesson for today. Number 4. The day Jesus was crucified. So theologians have been debating this for a long time. And so I'm going to tell you where I stand. And I don't know, maybe I stand with a quarter of the theologians and 3/4 of the theologians take the traditional view. So the traditional view is that Jesus died on Friday. And then everyone agrees he resurrected on Sunday. So the problem with Friday is that Jesus himself said, just as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of a huge fish, so the Son of Man will be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. And so Jesus seems to be prophesying, like Jonah, 3 nights in the earth. The problem with a Friday crucifixion is that's Friday night, Saturday night. That's only 2 nights. So there's kind of something not quite right here. So that's the traditional view. That's why we do Good Friday, because Jesus traditionally died on Friday. Now, I am one of those that believes that Jesus did not die on Friday, but in fact, his death on the cross occurred on Thursday. And so that there was actually a double Sabbath. In Jewish history, occasionally in the Old Testament times, they would have a double Sabbath weekend. You know how we say, oh, good, I got a 3-day weekend? Well, sometimes they would go, oh, good, we got a double Sabbath weekend. What normally is the Sabbath for the Jewish people? Saturday. So if you had a double Sabbath, it would be Friday and then Saturday, okay? So, and then their first day is Sunday. So come with me to verse 31. And I'll give you the evidence for why I believe it is Thursday. By the way, that then would give exactly the amount of time that Jesus said he would be down in Sheol, in the earth, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and resurrects Sunday morning. So verse 31, now it was the day of preparation. They were preparing all their lambs, slain, because it was a Passover weekend, and they were slaying their lambs on the preparation day to feast the next day. And so when they were all killing their lambs, Christ was dying on the cross. It was a day of preparation, and the next day was to be what? A special Sabbath, which is very weird because, and that's why we believe, it's one of the reasons we believe it was a special Sabbath, because it wasn't that often that they would have a double Sabbath weekend. Otherwise, they would just say, and the next day was their Sabbath. But they're going, no, the next day was a special Sabbath. So this would have been one of those times they had 2 Sabbaths in a row. Now, I'll give you one more piece of evidence, and and I hate to bring this up because this can get confusing if you don't understand that the original Bible was written in Hebrew and Greek. And then it's been translated into English and all the different languages in the world. And you understand that every time you translate from one language to another, it can get complex to try to figure out exactly what they mean and to put words in to make sense of it. Does everyone understand that? So we believe the original scriptures as written in Greek and Hebrew are inspired. Every Greek and Hebrew word was given by the Lord. But as soon as you translate it into another language, you can have subtle changes. Does everyone follow that? Okay, but they do a really good job. Now, unfortunately, sometimes translators are influenced by tradition and their theology, and so they don't translate the word. They should know better, but they don't translate the word exactly what it is in the Greek because they're being influenced by something else. By the way, I'll give you an example. The word baptism. You know, the word baptism is actually a Greek word. And King James came along and he says, look, I want you to translate the Bible, and I want you to translate the Bible into a language that all the people can understand. The Greek word for baptism actually means to submerge, to dip. And so, but King James, they were sprinkling people for baptism. And so the scholars came to King James and says, hey, if we translate the word baptismo in Greek into English, it means to submerge or to put people under the water. And we don't do that. So that's when King James says, okay, don't translate that word. Just bring it over from the Greek baptism. Just bring it right over into English. No one will know any better. They won't know what that word actually means. So that's how translators get influenced by tradition. So in the Gospel of Matthew 28, verse 1, it talks about after the Sabbath, Mary going to the tomb on the first day of the week. In every Greek manuscript that we have, the word for Sabbath is plural there. After the Sabbaths, Mary went. So the King James Version, the NIV, and many versions, because they were influenced by the tradition that there was only one Sabbath on Saturday and Jesus was crucified on Friday, made a decision not to translate the Greek word Sabbaths, plural, but to make it singular. So, but there are 4 literal translations of Bibles. There's 4 literal translation Bibles in the English, or you can just look up the Greek if you can read the Greek, and that word is in the plural, meaning that there was more than one Sabbath. There were 2 Sabbaths, and after the Sabbaths, after the 2 Sabbaths, Mary went on Sunday, and there was Jesus. Again, as we get better, maybe the newer translations will finally figure it out, but this is what's called church tradition, that Jesus died on Friday, so we got to eliminate the S. Instead of just going, look, we shouldn't be changing God's word. If it's in the plural, there's a reason why it's in the plural.